How's it going, everybody? Welcome to OP Entertainment. I'm Omar Darwish.
And I'm Pratik Cherian.
And finally, the Eternals review. We're doing it. We're going to go spoiler-free for the first, we're going to try for 5 minutes, but we'll let you guys know when we go into spoilers. Pratik, I know we both kind of enjoyed this movie, which is rare for the channel. How far apart are we on this? Because I pretty much loved it.
Okay, I'll say this. I'm not going to go so far as to say I loved it.
Sure.
But when I look at this movie as a whole, I kind of came away from it going, this was probably the most ambitious MCU movie I've ever seen.
There's a lot of asks, a lot of big asks.
A lot of things this movie's trying to do, a lot of things it needs to do in order to work, and I say for the most part, it pulled it off. Now, I think that part is going to be the central question of how much somebody enjoys this movie, okay?
Yeah.
Because it is so ambitious, and I think if you watch it and you're like, oh, they tried all of these things and they didn't work, you're not going to like the movie. And if you, like me, think for the most part it worked out, you're going to enjoy it.
Ambitious is the perfect word. Ambitious. I feel like the word epic is getting overused now,
yeah.
But for real, it's such a big scope. Probably it's definitely the biggest scale that the MCU's ever tried to do. It almost makes everything else seem irrelevant in comparison. But I honestly feel like this movie works way more as a sci-fi movie. Not even high concept. There's some high concept in there, but just a science fiction movie more than it does an MCU movie.
Yeah.
And my other question for you be. Is that why people aren't liking this movie? What do you think?
To me, that is the big question is why is this movie getting so much hate? Because I don't understand
I
at
have
all.
some theories, but we'll wait till we go spoiler-free. Or spoilers. This is spoiler-free, don't worry. Characters were all pretty great. Highlights, definitely Kumail Nanjiani's character. Wasn't it Kengo? He was great. I will say, I do feel like they kind of underused Angelina Jolie just because, she doesn't do as much as I'd want her to.
But at the same time, without going into spoilers,
Sure.
I think that they gave her character a lot of there's a reason they cast her, okay? There's a lot of depth that's required to make that character work, and I think that you need a talented actress to bring that depth to the character,
Right.
and I thought she succeeded.
She has big moments. I just feel like they're so spread out.
And I think a lot of that is because it's the name, right? It's Angelina Jolie.
Maybe,
she's on the marketing.
She would overpower the rest of the movie if she had too much to do.
Yeah.
I could see that. So I thought all the chemistry between all the characters worked. There's a couple characters introduced at first that you're I don't know how I feel about these guys. But by the end of the movie, I feel like I love all the characters, and I actually love what they did with pretty much all of them. How do you feel about the world building? Because I feel like that's the biggest thing with this movie. Is this definitely expands the MCU to something much bigger than we've ever gotten.
Yeah, and I think for me, this movie kind of does this thing where it flashes back and then flashes to the present day, and then flashes back and then flashes to the present day. And I think that I understand why they were doing it, and a lot of the flashbacks kind of add context to what you're about to see or what you just saw. And I think for the most part that worked, but I do think especially in the beginning of the movie, there's kind of this sense of okay, I don't really understand what's going on here. These characters clearly understand more than I do as a viewer, and that can be a little jarring. I think if you stick with it, it all makes sense. They do a good job of wrapping everything up.
Is it a spoiler to say that this movie does Justice League better than DC?
I'm so glad you said that. I was thinking that, honestly, in a lot of ways, like you said earlier, the word epic gets thrown around a lot, but the way that DC movies kind of visually make their characters seem more like gods, larger life. Yeah.
And that might be why, not to cut you off, that might be why this is losing some MCU people and MCU fans, because for the most part, you probably agree, DC is more of the gods, MCU is more of the relatable, everyman characters,
yeah, that's
right?
why they make better movies.
Sure. But this is definitely not the everyman character. These are gods, in probably the most literal sense that.
And I think that if we can get into one of the flaws of the movie, I do think that at times you can kind of lose the human aspect of
they don't try too hard
care.
To humanize them.
Yeah. And I think that mileage kind of varies on that, because I think that especially in the beginning till you kind of get to the character development of these of who we're watching on screen, the main conflict that I need to care about is the Eternals versus Deviants, and it's kind of hard to care about that at times, I think.
Yeah, especially. Do you feel like we've done enough spoiler-free?
Well, I will probably run a little bit longer.
Okay. Overall, I would say definitely see this movie. If you don't want to hear any spoiler stuff, I feel like for the most part, everything else I want to say is kind of spoiler heavy. But
Wait, we went like 3 minutes.
we went about
if
five.
that.
We went about 5 minutes. Let's see. Okay,
Chloe Zhao directing.
you know, that's one thing. I've from a lot of the reviews, and we even read some on the show, that people were saying she seems uninterested in the action. What movie were they watching? I thought the action brought a lot of nuance compared to a lot of MCU stuff.
I think I can.
It felt like what I've wanted to see from the DC movies. Like really, like
I would say that the action. This doesn't feel like your standard MCU fare. It doesn't feel like your standard action movie. There's no like the big set piece isn't there. I think I really appreciated the action, like the final action sequence. I thought there was some
the beach sequence.
The beach sequence,
I agree.
From a choreography standpoint, there was a lot of interesting fight choreography.
This movie was beautiful.
I do think there are times where like there were fight sequences in there that had to happen for story reasons, and because they weren't super big character moments where you could
kind of push the plot kind of.
Yeah, you could kind of tell like the fact that we both like are like, oh, okay, they're just trying to like move the plot along.
Sure.
I think that might be what people are picking up on. But I think overall, Chloe Zhao, I would say success.
I would say success. Yeah. Other than maybe minor, there's definitely some scenes that drag on a bit longer than they should.
Yeah, that was the other thing I was going to ask you. Pacing. How did you think about pacing?
I mean, it was almost like a 3-hour movie, right? Like I don't know how long this movie was, but it felt every minute of it. It didn't feel like it was flying by any mean. So I will say there weren't many like, hold on, we have to slow down for a huge exposition dump. I felt like it was sprinkled throughout the movie, or like in a good way. Pacing is probably my biggest issue with this movie, I would say.
So the way I always measure pacing is how many times did I check my watch during the movie?
Sure.
I checked it one time when we were about an hour in, and I checked it again after like another hour and 15. So like
I'll say
me, like 2 watch checks, that's pretty good.
If I was pretty much immersed in the movie the whole time. I wasn't even checking my phone once, or my watch. So I would say for the most part, if that's all you can ask from pacing, then it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
So I'd probably only dock it like 1 point.
I think the fact that some of the scenes that dragged out to me were in the beginning, and then, I mean, the third act maybe kind of, you know, the third act is kind of a little bit more similar to something we've seen before. So I think that's why, like,
sure,
from that aspect, I kind of came out of it, but it was all essential. So I think the fact that most of the longer scenes are in the beginning kind of help with the pacing because you're still kind of fresh in it.
Hey, do you think the third act... You ready to go in spoilers? We're going to go spoilers now.
All right, fine. Hold on, give them a second to like click away. All right, before we do that. So overall, I think you would recommend this movie. I would recommend this movie. Do you think it's one you're going to go back to?
Yes, I'm going to see this again in theaters. We saw it in Dolby. I'm definitely going to see it in IMAX because there's certain shots where like they're speaking to a celestial. That's in the trailers. It's not really a spoiler. And like I'm like, man, I really want to see that on the biggest possible screen.
I think those iconic Chloe Zhao like landscape shots are definitely ones that like ask to be seen on IMAX. So yeah, I think if I were to watch it again,
she actually Chloe Zhao did an interview recently where she was talking about how she didn't know how to shoot IMAX, and like a year ago, Denis Villeneuve let her see Dune. Really, this is a real story. and he like showed her a lot. And you'll like this. He recommended that she watch Interstellar in IMAX because that was like a beautiful, and it was a very beautiful IMAX like accomplishment. And I feel like she definitely took the best parts of that. Like she learned a lot from.
Well, and the other, besides being like a DC movie, the other movie I kind of compare it to is Dune. Like as far as like how ambitious it is and like the type of shots that were there, like there's definitely that Villeneuve influence in the work. I feel that for sure.
Sure. Do you want to score it now, or do you want to get into spoilers and score it after?
You know, given that this is the spoiler free section, I'm just gonna say I would recommend it.
I would recommend it too. Yeah.
You know,
go see it.
Definitely.
Is this the first movie we both recommended, other than maybe Dune?
And even that, I wasn't like, you know, I was definitely a catch it on HBO Max
like,
guy.
See
So
it if you can. This one, you're like, go see it in IMAX.
Go see it. I think that there's stuff to be had here. There's stuff to be had for sure. All right, I will take the leash off. We're gonna go spoilers.
Harry Styles is in this movie. No. All right.
I didn't even let me get spoilers
First
out.
of all, my biggest flaw with the movie is the CGI on Pip the Troll at the end. What the hell was that? God, that must have been when IATSE was about to strike, and they were like, "Hey, let's just hire some people that worked on the PS2 graphics back in the day and see what they can do." Dude, what? That's the worst CGI that's been in the MCU, right? Like, I know I don't want to harp on just a little moment, but like,
to be honest, like I don't care because it was so fast.
Sure, but like, how does that get past even one person. Like, I just don't see that getting past anybody in the edit bay. Like, anyway, though, let's get into the actual things that matter in this movie.
Sure.
Did you feel like, because this is my real actual big issue with the movie other than pacing, did you feel like, what's Gemma Chang's character?
Cersei.
Did you feel like they, like, kind of didn't explain how she got so powerful at the end? I know they were doing, like, the hive mind thing or the unimind or whatever, but, like, what does that entail? Like, what? Like, I feel like they didn't really go into detail about their powers because they kind of wanted to be vague about them so they could do whatever.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of left the powers for us to discover. But yeah, they never actually answered the question of, like, how did she...
How long is the Celestial frozen? Like, a lot of stuff. Like,
well, and that part's probably, you know, till they decide that they want to do something with it. But for me, it's not so much because they explained kind of how she was able to shut down the Celestial. To me, it was more of a earlier in the movie when she turns the Deviant into a tree. They never really explained how she did that.
Yeah,
she just kind of did it.
I did think you're right. I did think they were gonna get back to that, and they never did. Right. I mean, I guess the point of that is just that she has an effect on life, on sentient life, and she thought she couldn't have an effect on sentient life. But I really can't get over the fact, though, that Earth is just like a ticking time bomb at this point, waiting for the right heat wave to come through. Like, I don't know. I kind of feel like every other MCU movie, I'm like, okay, that's great and all, but you know, there's a Celestial about to explode Earth, right? Like, I don't know. This is an Avengers level threat. Also, and I know this is kind of the big MCU issue, but like, where is everybody? Like, where is everybody at? Like,
but what are they supposed to do about it?
Doesn't one of the Eternals makes a joke about knowing one of the Avengers, right? Back in the day, he was like,
yeah. Kingo makes a joke about knowing Thor when he was like little.
Yeah. You just kind of think that they would know about this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, but what's Thor up to? He's off out in space with the Guardians somewhere.
It just makes you ask some more questions about like the previous movies, like in Age of Ultron when he goes into the hot tub and gets this vision of the Infinity Stones. Why didn't he get a vision of the Celestial? That's a way bigger threat. Like, you know what I mean?
That
like,
whole hot tub sequence is the big problem of Age of Ultron. Way to
pick on that is the continuity we're sticking to for Teague.
Way to pick on one of the biggest plot holes in the MCU overall. Like,
what do you want to say? Spoiler max on this.
I mean, I think there was a lot. I will say this. So, just as a small like appetite whetter. So, in Marvel Comics, if I remember correctly, the fact that there's a Celestial seed in Earth is kind of what helps spark superpowers, and part of the superpowers that are there because of the Celestials
mutants. You saying the X-Men fatigue?
I'm just saying.
We're saying Evan Peters come back.
This is kind of how this is their explanation for mutants in the comics. So maybe this is maybe they'll say this is where it all starts.
Let's run with this. Let's say that's what they're doing, just for the sake of the argument. Are you happy with that? The fact that mutants haven't been around this whole time?
Sure, I'm fine with that.
I feel like a big part of the mutants. Like, how do you do Magneto's character now?
Who knows? I don't know.
Completely new.
Who knows? I don't know.
Well, they did say they were just gonna call them like X now, right? Like something like that. So maybe this will be something completely new.
But yeah, I think this movie is just jam packed with Easter eggs and
for sure
and teases, and I mean it is the MCU. That's what they do. But I think this one especially at the end, there's just a ton there.
Yeah.
So
how did you feel about like the Shakespearean betrayal with
Icarus?
Icarus, yeah.
I kind of saw it coming.
Did you?
To be honest, yeah.
In like the moments before, like he's about to reveal, I saw it coming, but not.
No, I kind of saw it at the beginning of the movie.
At the beginning of the movie, I just kind of didn't like him as a character. I was like, he's just a little too broody.
I was hoping I was wrong because I love Richard Madden as an actor, and I'm like,
good.
Like I just want more of him. But
did they? And then here's my second question: did they redeem him by the end? Would you say? I mean, if Vader's redeemed and all he did was throw some guy off a balcony once, like. After killing billions of people, trillions of people.
That's a little different because all Icarus did was not kill somebody. It wasn't even like, oh, you saved. It's like, no. You just stopped being evil for 30 seconds.
I'll say that they probably saved him for redemption in the future. Like, I mean, he does fly into the sun.
He flew into well, I'm going to assume that's as close to suicide as you're going to get.
I'm going to say he's like Superman and he absorbs the power of the sun. He's going to come back
stronger. That's not at all how his powers work.
That's why they were calling him Superman earlier. Let's see. You want to talk about that post-credit scene or both of them?
Oh, sure. Why not?
Okay. So Harry Styles shows up, brother of Thanos, Eros.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to ignore the Pip the Troll CGI being atrocious.
I know that CGI was really bad. Did you not find like spots of bad CGI earlier as
I
well?
really didn't. Because maybe it's because I was hearing the CGI wasn't that great in this movie,
Yeah.
especially from the Deviants. I thought the Deviants looked
The
good.
Deviants were fine.
Looked
I thought
oil-spotted and
I do
whatnot.
think it was basically some of the action sequences. There were times where like the CGI just wasn't up. Like I noticed dips in quality.
I guess because like those scenes in particular were like shot dark enough that I felt like it worked for me. Like,
Maybe.
And even like when they're like jumping through lava and stuff, that usually looks really fake, and you can tell it looks like they're on a green screen or using.
There was
that
definitely
stuff.
points there too. Yeah.
But for the most part, I thought it looked pretty good, as real as it could. It's no Dune, but
I think there was the one I was thinking of in particular is I think it was they were filming like the beach sequence and then it cuts to Gemma Chan as Cersei and like the camera angle is like slanted and they're slow mo
sure.
and it's just like, oh, this is very green screeny.
Okay,
There.
okay.
But like I don't have any major complaints with it, but like before we go knocking just on the one troll,
Sure.
like, there were spotty parts otherwise.
that was way worse than everything else, though. I'll say. I mean, maybe judge for yourselves, but yeah. Anyway, though, that post-credit scene was cool. Do you think we're going to see a lot of this character, of Harry's character, in this?
I don't know.
And also when? In the next Eternals? In
if there is
Guardians?
a next Eternals.
Right, because, I mean, this one's... first of all, just going off of that, I think this is probably going to make a lot of money. I think it's going to be like 80 million opening weekend.
I hope so. They did end with the Eternals will return.
Did
so,
it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, cool.
So
Honestly, I mean, Kevin Feige is not one to just like scramble and change his plans like DC just because people don't freak out about a movie. Especially because Feige obviously loves this movie. He was talking high praise about this movie more than anybody, saying this is the best thing they've ever made. I won't go with that far, but I'll say this is probably the best thing since like Endgame, as far as the movies go. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I know I put WandaVision way higher than you, so I would say WandaVision's the best. But
I think I still have Black Widow above this, to be quite honest with you. But
yeah,
I
liked
love Black Widow.
I like Black Widow, but this was definitely like just everything. I mean, look at your side of the table. You know, like, this was more of like the mystic arts.
Yeah,
stuff.
it was good. But yeah, back to Eros.
I don't really see him popping up unless it's like Guardians. He might pop up in the next Guardians.
Maybe in Guardians. I think it's one of those things where they're just planting seeds for characters they could use. And
now,
I think
is Eros is he a good guy in the comics? Is he a bad guy?
yes,
Brother of Thanos.
he's a good guy.
Okay, cool.
He's an Eternal, brother of Thanos. But yeah, generally his powers are he's able to influence people's like emotions.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll be honest. I haven't read a ton of him in the comics. It's more of a like vague understanding than it is anything super specific. So I don't know what they could do with it.
Let's get to the more maybe confounding post-credit scene.
Okay.
Can you explain what's going on in this scene? Because I kind of had no
so
idea. I was lost.
when they introduced Kit Harington's character Dane.
Real quick. I thought Kit Harington was kind of a waste in this movie.
You know,
I found myself wanting
all
Cersei
right.
to get back with Icarus, and then when
Talking about that, it's not that he was a waste. They kind of flipped gender roles there really quickly. Like if you think about it, like Cersei,
he's like the damsel.
not that he's a damsel in distress, but like if you flip them, like he does play like
He's
a very
like
similar
he's
role.
kind of like the female character usually that has nothing to do in the movie.
No,
and then-
yeah, it doesn't really have
Okay.
anything to do. Like, is there just to give like the hero motivation?
I guess I'm
and-
glad that they didn't force a subplot with him the whole movie. But I probably would have made the post-credit scene have a little more weight to it if they had. But anyway, go back to the post-credit scene.
Okay,
What are we seeing here?
So Kit Harington's playing Dane Whitman, who in the comics is the Black Knight.
Okay.
So the Black Knight is the wielder of the Ebony Blade, which is the sword that we see at the end there.
Sure.
Basically, the Ebony Blade is passed down in his family from King Arthur medieval times, and the only person that can wield it is one that is pure of heart, that can
like Mjolnir.
that can kind of like that. There's some twists regarding like the enchantment and how it actually works that I'm not going to spoil if they're actually going to go into that.
We'll talk about this off camera.
But yeah, it's that's kind of the character. So the character's been an Avenger. The character has been around. At one point, even led the Avengers. So there's a deep history there. But that's kind of the overall.
I assumed they cast Kit Harington for a reason. He's going to have a bigger role. Now, we hear a voice at the end. Do you remember what he said?
Are you sure you're ready for that,
Yeah.
Mr. Whitman? Yeah.
Yeah. I immediately thought Mahershala Ali and that was Blade. I'm sure that there's 10,000 videos online right now of exactly who that is, and people are definitely going to have this confirmed.
I don't think anybody actually knows. That's the thing.
I think it'll be confirmed pretty soon. Do you have a guess other than that, maybe? Because I don't know why it would be Mahershala Ali, other than they announced him like 10 years ago, and like he's about to be 50. Like,
this is a super lazy answer, but maybe Samuel L. Jackson, because it makes sense for Nick Fury to show up.
oh, no, you're right. It does.
And like,
except isn't he like in space right now? Or
yeah,
whenever we don't know exactly when
yeah,
this is.
you think a Celestial showing up is enough to get him back to Earth, you know?
Sure.
And I mean, just like the manner of like showing up and being like, "Are you ready for that?" Like, it's
Speaking of Nick Fury, though, do you think Nick Fury knows about the Eternals? Probably not.
You know,
right?
that's one of the things that I don't know that this movie answered super well for me is like, how did they stay?
They don't seem to be hiding.
Yeah.
Sprite is like telling stories to everybody, and I know that's like a long time ago, but these stories don't translate like ever. Like, I don't know.
Nobody mentioned it once.
Yeah, and it seems like they are pretty out in the open, like turning buses into flowers. Okay, so I guess you ready to score this then? Or you got more to say about this?
Yeah, no.
I feel like there's definitely. I honestly could talk about this movie.
Oh,
for like an hour.
last thing, really fast. So, again, just an Easter egg kind of thing. In Jason Aaron's run of Avengers, which is fairly recent,
Okay.
The Avengers use the body of a dead Celestial as their base on Earth. So
I think that's gonna be the new like.
I'm just
Hall
saying,
of Justice or whatever.
maybe that's all they do with the Celestial. Who knows? There's stuff there. All right, now I'm ready to score it. That's my last thing.
You go first.
Okay, this is hard.
Because I'll allow you to do halves.
I'm not doing a half. I think overall I'm gonna go with an 8.
8. Okay.
You know, it was really well shot. I enjoyed the acting overall. The cinematography was really beautiful. Just a very ambitious story. Mm-hmm. At the same time, minor pacing issues, minor CGI issues. I just thought that the interest in the characters kind of came and went at points. I thought the fact that they're not human made it a challenging story, which they mostly succeeded. But there are times where you're just like, okay, I don't actually care about what's happening.
Not only are they not human, but they're not even the beings that they thought they were. They're like literally these like robots created by Celestials.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
So yeah, they kind of like take the rug from under them a couple times, but. Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying as far as the pacing was kind of an issue for me, and that's really the only reason I'm going to dock this movie at all. I'm going to give this a 9.
Okay.
Cinematography was beautiful. This is definitely the best MCU movie I've seen in a while. I loved Shang-Chi. And honestly, it's between Shang-Chi and this for me for like most beautiful MCU movie as far as the CGI I thought was all pretty good.
I'm going to answer that for you.
Great.
It is this.
I don't know. There's that sequence with Yang Li and when she's meeting the Mandarin and they're doing their airbending and stuff. I thought that was great. Anyway, yeah, everything about this movie. The acting was great. There's a couple characters I could have cared more for, and they could have maybe humanized them a bit more. We didn't really talk about what happens with Sprite at the end. They make her human. Does she not have her powers anymore? Because I'm assuming they made her human so that she could age like a human does.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like, just like how
so if they need her to pop back up, they can without being like, how come she looks older now?
I was thinking, like, did they cast like a 30-year-old woman that looks like a kid? But no, that's like legit a child.
Yeah,
so, like, okay,
it's like a 12-year-old, right?
Yeah. I remember Millie Bobby Brown was in talks to play that role.
Yeah,
so you never know. I thought she did great in it though.
Yeah, no, she did well.
I'm definitely gonna say 9 though. I'm giving this movie a 9. I want to give it like an 8.5, but it's a 9. It's a 9. Go see it on the biggest screen you can. I would say if you're torn between seeing it in Dolby and seeing it in IMAX, I would see it in IMAX. With Dune, it was
having not seen it in IMAX. I would say go see it in IMAX.
But it's because there's shots when like Ajax is talking to the Celestial and it'll zoom out to the Celestial. I'm like, I know you can see more of the Celestial on the IMAX screen. Like, I guarantee they shot a big IMAX shot for that. So I really did feel like I was kind of almost missing out by not seeing it in IMAX. So yeah, see it on the biggest screen. You want to take us out?
Thanks for watching, guys. Tune in later where we will have more movie reviews for you. We're waiting for Hawkeye to come out. Let's just be real. I'm excited for it. But we'll see you guys later.
See you guys.